Uh, Thank you for viewing tonight's city council meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And as a reminder, if you are on Zoom meeting as a participant, please put yourself on mute unless you are speaking. We're currently live streaming this meeting at the city YouTube channel and at Lake County Paper TV live stream YouTube channel. Madam Clerk, can I roll the call, please?
Councilmember Coffey.
Here.
Councilmember Overton.
Here.
Councilmember Cramer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Here.
Mayor Sue.
Present. All right. We have Mr. Councilman Cramer. Please.
Be honored. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. A moment of silence to remember the 410,000 deaths because of COVID in the nation and 31 in this county. So please remember the silence. Remember these people. Thank you all. Okay, while we're operating under virtual meeting guidelines, I'll explain our meeting procedures. Agenda items will be open to the public before final action is taken. Citizens wishing to comment on any agenda item, email the city clerk or submit their comment to our town hall portal. Comments received will be read out loud by myself or a staff member during the agenda item. If you are on a Zoom meeting, please raise your hand to speak. You will be called upon. If remote participants encounter technical difficulties, we'll ask that we continue discussing the item and the participant can rejoin when the difficulty is resolved. Again, if you are a participant who is not speaking, please mute your computer to prevent distractions from the current speaker. Do we have any changes to the agenda? No changes?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Any changes for Nelson? Any changes from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I recommend that we adopt the agenda as submitted.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll go to our presentation of January adoptable dogs. Lieutenant Hollis?
Yes.
Happy New Year.
So,
This is Toby. He's a boxer mix. He's about 8 to 9 years old. Nice boy, nice house skills, very treat motivated. Likes other dogs, smaller ones preferably, bigger ones, even though he's neutered. We've had him with bigger females and he thinks he still has it.
Yeah.
So he can be a little inappropriate. Like that. We've introduced him to cats and he ignores them unless they kind of hiss, come at him and he'll bark, but nothing aggressive. I think his perfect home would be an adult home where he can just relax, but go on lots of walks. You have a leash in your hand, I'm sure this is good. More fix it. Thanks. We had him actually a couple of months. Very well.
For a senior,
Hmm?
saying that he might be better for like an older person.
Yeah, as long as they're a little active and can, take them on the walk. Or nice big backyard to interact.
there you go.
Great indoors. I had him in the animal control office just for a little bit earlier, and he just laid on a blanket.
Could you tell the people where they can?
Oh, yes. So you just call the shelter, 707-273-9440. Come on down, 820 Old Highway 53.
Thank you,
Appointments
Charlene.
preferred.
Could you share his name into the microphone for those people that are watching outside the chambers? And a little bit about it.
Toby, Toby, 8 to 9-year-old, boxer mix, already neutered, microchipped, current on vaccines.
And good for seniors.
Good for seniors, sure.
This senior went outside and met him, so I not have the repeat of something that happened a few meetings ago.
Thanks, Dad.
And he is very good. He sat for me. He took food out of my hand.
Hopefully someone will want him in their home.
We're all gonna have to take him.
See you, Toby.
Thanks, Charlene.
Thank
Thank you, Charlene.
Thanks for me.
Good evening, members of the council. A quick update on statistics for the animal control shelter. So far this year, we've taken 20 dogs into the shelter. Of those 20 dogs and some of the ones we've had from last year, 17 have been have left the shelter. 10 of those have been gone to rescues, and 7 of them were returned to or reclaimed by their owners. 0 have been euthanized, so we're at 100%. So,
That's great.
so good number so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant,
Thanks.
Hobbs, do you have the final numbers from last year on the live release rate?
I don't have it with me though, but I think it was right under 95%. I think like 94 point something for last year. So the numbers for the whole year were pretty good.
Great.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks, Lieutenant Hobbs.
All right, we'll move now to public comments. Public comment will be accepted via email and through the city town hall portal prior to the start of the meeting. Each public comment emailed to the city clerk will be read aloud by the city clerk up for 3 minutes, or will be displayed on the screen. Public comment emails and town hall submissions which are received after the beginning of the meeting will not be included in the record. If any member of the public viewing the meeting on Zoom and wishes to speak, please click the raise your hand button on your screen. Madam Clerk, have you received any public comment?
When I received any public comment via the town hall portal or via email, however, we do have one member on the Zoom who wishes to speak, and that is Kevin Victorian. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Kevin.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello,
We hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just having difficulties trying to get this thing to work. We've been trying to get on to talk to you all this stuff for the last 3 meetings and stuff. I'm here representing the conscious neighbors of the avenues. And we have an issue that is really pressing and stuff. We have a homeless encampment there here in the avenues back in the area between Canocti and 38th and 40th. I had Supervisor Sabatier and Mayor Cramer come out and take a look at this. It's a real problem. It's blight. There's drugs. There's gunfire. There's the main thing that we are really concerned about is fire. If that thing catches on fire, the whole avenues are gone. And we want to get on the agenda to discuss this with you about doing something about it. Not only just getting rid of these people out of this area, but finding a place for them to go. And I would like to get on the agenda and speak on it and stuff.
Thank you. City manager, is there something we can accommodate?
I think the best thing to do as a first step would be to, contact me and find out a little bit what's going on, and see exactly what the issues are. And then, if it's a policy decision, council, then we can certainly bring it back as an agenda item.
Thank you.
I think he's muted again. They're trying to speak.
Kevin, so it sounds like you need to contact our city manager and discuss your issues.
I'm sorry, the audio is really bad here. I can barely hear you.
So, Mr. Victorian, this is Alan Flora, the city manager. If you could contact me, and I could get some more details on the situation, we'll take it from there.
Okay, and I had a letter sent to each of you in your emails. You should have gotten it today. I'm sorry that it was so late, but it's describing some of the issues that we have, and also that Supervisor Sabatier, he also took pictures and stuff, and there's like sewage going to nowhere and just going into the ground and all this and that. But I will get in contact with you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Victorian. This is council member Nell Cramer that was out there
Oh,
with
okay.
you. And
Hi, Russ.
how are you?
Oh, I'm
Kevin?
doing fine.
Yeah, we've had some informal discussions with I have with both our city manager and with our police chief. So if you can come up, sit down with them a little bit more and give them a little bit more detail, that would certainly be helpful.
You mean right now?
No, not tonight.
Okay,
Monday
okay.
morning.
Monday will be fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your concern.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to the consent agenda. Do we have any items that anybody wants to take a separate discussion on consent item? No? Do we have any of the public that wants to approve a consent item? Madam Clerk?
There is no one in the Zoom who has raised their hand to have public comment on any item in the consent calendar, and I've not received any emails or town hall.
Great. Or entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would propose that we accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Mr. Mayor, I will second that.
We have a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to our business items. The consideration of an ad hoc committee to review the creation of a youth sport complex and what is probably now called the wildlife property. City Manager Flora, could you put the staff?
Ms. Swanson's gonna present the staff report.
All right, juggling a little bit tonight. Honorable Mayor and council members, as you're aware, the city recently purchased approximately 31-acre property behind Safeway, which would house the public works yard, and which is a large enough site for consideration of a youth sports complex area. At the January 7th meeting, council directed staff to bring forward consideration of an ad hoc committee consisting of 2 council members, a planning commissioner, and representatives from the youth center, the South Shore Little League, and the Youth Soccer League. Staff is recommending council approve the creation of an ad hoc committee, and Mayor Sluten appoint 2 council members to this ad hoc committee. And if approved, staff will reach out to the organizations and set a first meeting for early February. That's my report.
Thank you. Do we have any-
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add one thing. I mean, we have had several people reach out to the city about, being a participant in the committee. I think, there's definitely significant interest in this. It would be our recommendation at this time, if it's what the council wants to do, is still moving forward with sort of these 6 official representatives on the committee. Of course, there'll be plenty of opportunity for anyone else to participate in the discussion around the project. But I just wanted to add that one.
Are there any public comments on Zoom for this item?
I have not received any comment via email or via the town hall portal, and it does not look like there are any hands raised in the Zoom room.
I would like to appoint,
I'm sorry. Excuse me. We do have one hand raised,
Okay.
just as I was saying that.
Okay, announce yourself. Oh, hi, it's Helen Mitchell.
hello, echo.
It was hard to hear what your discussion was about setting the committee up. Just wondering if you've assigned people to the committee yet or not.
We're in the process of doing that. The mayor will appoint 2 council persons, and we want to get a representative from the planning commissioner, 1 planning commissioner, and then 1 from the youth center, 1 from South Shore Little League, and the youth soccer league, because they all have an interest in this proposed conflict.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to, for me to do this.
Do we need to have 1 motion or 2 motions? 1 for the creation and 1 for the,
As we discussed last council meeting, I would like to be on it, and this Councilman Cramer wants to be on it. So the 2 council people are set, and we're waiting people from the youth center and South Shore Little League and the Chocolate League to have a representative to this committee. And hopefully, after the first meeting of the plan commission, they will be able to appoint 1 planning commissioner to this project.
That'll be on the agenda for next week.
Awesome.
We do have 1 other public comment on the Zoom room.
Hi. I just wanted to say, if you guys could speak closer to the microphone, it would make it easier to understand what you're saying, because of the masks don't help. That's my comment, because I really like to hear what you guys are talking about.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll make the motion.
Are we ready for a motion?
Make the motion, Mayor.
Yep, we're ready.
Make the motion to confirm the
I
creation.
don't think your mic's on yours.
You're right.
Let's keep going.
I'd like to make the motion to confirm the creation of a mayor's appointment to the ad hoc committee for, I guess it's just ad hoc committee to review the creation of the youth sports complex.
Second. Hey, can we have all in favor?
I,
Aye. Go to item number 10. Mr. Alcora, could you prepare the staff report?
Yes, sir. So every year, the council, sitting as the successor agency to the former Clearlake Redevelopment Agency, is required to approve a ROPS, or redevelopment obligation payment schedule. So this is part of the wind down of the former redevelopment agency. Most of you are familiar with this. And so this is an action that has to be taken showing all of the authorized payments that are allowed to use funds from the redevelopment agency trust fund. And so with your approval tonight of this, then that is forwarded. We actually have a Lake County Redevelopment Agency Oversight Board meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and they will approve presumably this ROPS and the ROPS from the city redevelopment agency as well. So there's nothing unique about the expenses included in this spreadsheet this year. I will try to address any questions you may have. We just have to update the total expected obligation of each of these items, and then what we would expect to expend in each 6-month period of fiscal year 2021, 2022. Of course, the biggest piece of this are the bonds that were issued by the redevelopment agency. number of years ago. There's still about $16 million owed. These payments are made from property tax that goes into the Redevelopment Agency Trust Fund. So with that, we just recommend approval of the ROPS, and I'll try to address any questions that you may have.
So there's questions from Councilman Cramer.
Yeah, just one question. Down here, the sentence, revenues are generated from former redevelopment agency tax increment allocation formula based on charges in annual assessed valuations. For the current revenue, the agency has some flexibility in meeting its obligations. And this is where my question comes. But any decline in revenue of the city's property tax allocation will reduce the funds available for allocation to the successor agency, which this would create challenges for the successor agency in meeting financial obligations of debt service disposal, et cetera, et cetera. How much of a possibility is that?
I think it's very unlikely. I mean, property tax revenue is generally pretty stable. I mean, there was a decline during the recession, of course, but I don't think there's any significant risk of not being able to meet, at the very least, the debt obligations of that agency.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from staff? If not, we'll open it up to the public. Do we have any comments from the public?
I have not received any email or town hall comments on this item, and no one in the Zoom meeting has raised their hand.
Right, I'll bring it back to council. If there's more discussion, can I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution SA-2021-01, authorizing submission of ROPS FY 21-22 for July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022 to the Oversight Board.
Second. I'll second. Seconded by Councilman Overton. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to item number 11. And I believe our Chief of Police, Andrew White, will address this.
Okay, should be good.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. The item before you tonight is the automated license plate recognition program. The intent is to give you a brief overview of where we're at with the program and also to ask for your authorization to expand the program. By way of background, you may recall around the time that I first arrived here, we brought forth an item to implement an automated license plate recognition program. Took us a little bit longer than we had hoped for with dealing with other issues. But last year, we were able to start with the test deployment and have been expanding that throughout the city. So automated license plate program is used basically to convert data associated with vehicle license plates for law enforcement purposes. These generate alerts and advise officers regarding stolen and wanted vehicles, vehicles associated with wanted persons, missing persons. It also provides investigative leads when we're following up on a crime that occurred and we want to try to identify the suspect within that. The International Association of Chiefs of Police did a study, and they estimate that somewhere around 70% of all crimes involve the use of a motor vehicle. I think anecdotally, in my experience, the number is probably even higher than that, just because it's a mode of transportation for people to get in somewhere, take advantage of the local community, and then escape out, whether it's to a different part of the city or completely outside of the city. ALPR technology is widely deployed in law enforcement throughout the United States. We are the first local agency to deploy in Lake County. CHP's had a system for quite some time that's here. And it's proving useful in solving a variety of different cases. It's obviously a force multiplier. It allows us to be out and about in various different locations in the community. When you consider that on average, we typically have 2 police officers and a sergeant on duty at any given time, trying to patrol 10 square miles and responding to, somewhere upwards of well over 20 some odd thousand calls of service per year. The department began testing in earnest in September of 2020. We deployed 2 cameras. With those 2 cameras, we saw immediate results with recovering stolen vehicles and resolving other crime issues. We've since expanded that system to 14 cameras, of which 4 cameras were sponsored by local businesses who are interested in increasing community safety. Those cameras all went live December of 2020, and they were deployed primarily in a hotspot area for criminal activity, as well as a secondary area in the south part of the city. That hotspot area was the Clearlake Park area, tying in with the efforts that we did in the area known as the Gobi Desert, but also to the greater Clearlake Park area. Since the technology has been deployed, we've recovered 20 stolen vehicles. We've actually recovered some others, but they didn't decide to ultimately follow through stolen vehicle reports. We've also been able to arrest an out-of-state kidnapping suspect and obtain an investigative lead in a shooting that occurred at a local hotel. And in that case, we didn't have much information to go off of, but we were able to use the technology. And in that case, actually, there was no license plate. We were able to go back through and see the vehicles that passed through the area, identify an involved party, and further that investigation. At this time, what we're asking the council to do is to allow us to expand the contract, not to exceed $65,000 a year for additional cameras. Our plan is to deploy a mix of solar self-contained cameras, which is what our primary deployment is right now. So obviously, as you know, we don't have many street lights and so forth, which is typically where you'd attach these things to. So in this case, the solar cameras are self-sustained. They're able to go pretty much anywhere. We would also add into the mix additional ones that use cameras that we would own, but they would process through the system. Those would be attached to the signalized intersection in the city, as well as finally attaching one to a towable platform that we're close to acquiring. You may recall that we did a test project out off of Lakeshore regarding a drug house. And in that case, we rented kind of a commercially available construction site monitoring trailer. We've been exploring one that's more law enforcement purpose built and rugged that we could deploy to different areas. The thing that I tell you is that having seen the technology play out, it's most definitely a force multiplier for us. As you know, hiring is very difficult for us, as well as retention. This tool directly enables the officers to be more effective. In terms of monitoring, one of the interesting things that we saw is that I noticed when I came here, and actually before I got hired here, that our theft rate was disproportionately high for the size of our community. However, many of the vehicles that we're recovering are vehicles that we wouldn't otherwise have been looking for. These were vehicles, for example, one just a week or so ago was a woman was pumping gas in Los Angeles. Guy came, stole the car, and drove straight up to Clearlake within minutes of entering the city. We were able to locate and apprehend the person and return back the vehicle. There's been numerous other cases of vehicles were taken outside the county. They bring them into Clearlake. And I think what the message is being sent to these individuals is that Clearlake is not a safe haven to come commit your crimes or to come victimize the members of our community. And I think that when you look at it, the deterrent effect is not just in the crime that we're solving, like recovering a stolen vehicle or whatnot, but it also deters other types of associated criminal activity that happens with it. The other cases that come to mind involve recoveries that were really rapid, literally within hours of getting the report. We were able to go in, we were able to focus on an area, go find the vehicle, return it back to the person. One particular one was somebody went to the supermarket and their car was stolen from outside the supermarket. So I think it's been a very effective tool. Obviously, very strong results for a very short period of time and a relatively small area of coverage. Our plan would be to focus on the major thoroughfares within the community and really access to the community so that we can catch these folks before they come in ideally, but also too, if they come in and they commit crimes, then we can go ahead and address that. We have been in communication with our other law enforcement partners within the county as far as expanding the technology. We have been able to assist the Highway Patrol with some investigations, with providing information, and those other entities are looking for, the Sheriff's Office is looking at acquiring LPR technology. And I know there's been some discussions about potentially for dumping type enforcement throughout the county or deterring the solid waste dumping that happens in different locations. So overall, very successful. I think it's cost effective. And it's something that with the way that the program's set up, at the end of the contract, if we decide that, it's really not delivering our results, it's gone. We don't owe pension responsibilities. We don't owe any of that other stuff. It's literally over at that time. The other thing is that in deploying this technology, we started with one platform. We're now onto another one that has all the stuff. That's the flock safety that's referred to in this. One of the things that I found attractive with that is that they have a strong commitment to community and making sure that this integrates well with the community. They were one of the first proponents that focused on involving local business owners. And that's when we were able to outreach through that avenue. And also too, considering about privacy. So looking at retention periods, that's a big discussion in this technology, is how long do you retain the data? And that was something else that was attractive, is their interest in kind of balancing that all out. And also too, having a strong audit path. That's one of the things in looking at the deployments that have occurred in other jurisdictions, is making sure that you have good policy, you have good tracking of how the system's utilized, and then even tracking its effectiveness. So we've been able to work through that. There's still some more work to do. We just, like I said, in December, we're really deployed widely. So dispatch is still getting used to it, getting the notifications, the officers knowing what areas to go to, and where to find the suspects and kind of, track them down. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. So I had a question regarding the California State Auditor report, which I sent to you. The state auditor did an audit of 4 different communities, much larger than ours. And one of the findings that they reported on was the use of cloud storage. The agencies used a cloud storage vendor to hold their many images and associated data. Yet the agencies lacked contract guarantees that the cloud vendor would appropriately protect the data. Now, you guys are collecting a lot of sensitive data. The potential for a breach is of concern. I'm just curious, the contract with Flock, I believe they use Amazon Web Services. I think I saw that on their site. I'm just wondering if we have appropriately protected data.
Yes, our contract covers the maintaining confidentiality on both parts of it. It also covers that as we look to share with other partners, that they also enter into a similar contract as far as protecting data. So I'm confident that it's protected. I would say though that, obviously it's a concentration of data in a particular area, but these cameras, they're not focused like inside the vehicle, getting faces, that sort of thing. Some of the technology that's out there does do that. These do not. These are focusing on the vehicle, and you can sometimes see an outline of the person, but they're otherwise in public spaces where anybody else could go set up a camera, sit outside and view.
Excellent. And my other question, after seeing the presentation, of the 20 stolen vehicles that you recovered, how many of those were due to hot list notifications? And I guess how many were post days, weeks?
The stolen vehicle ones were primarily hot list notifications. there was some situations where we were able to, so what he's referring to for the hot list is that as a vehicle, so your vehicle gets stolen, you report it to a police officer, they enter it into the statewide and national database. The system every 4 hours, I believe, goes in, will query that and add it to this hot list. After it's in the hot list, if the vehicle goes by a camera, it then activates and alerts officers, and they go into the area and try to find the vehicle. One of the things that can happen is that you file that report, there's now a lag time between when the vehicle is actually taken versus when it's going to trigger a hot list to go by. One of the advantages of the system being able to kind of look back in time is that we can see passive travel in the cases where somebody says, hey, my vehicle's stolen. We can say, hey, it's been in these areas, and then the officers can do extra patrol and kind of focus on that area and be able to, recover that vehicle. One of the cases that doesn't show up in the 20 was an individual said that he wanted to report his car was stolen. He was in the morning time. I saw the call come in. We did a quick search on the vehicle, saw that it had gone to an area, and we were able to determine that it had not left that area. Before the officer even started the report, they drove over to the area, recovered it. The person ended up deciding not to follow through. I don't know what the relationship was with the person who took it. But in either case, we were able to recover before it ever even triggered a hot list. So primarily, it's really a balance between the two. I think in the post-incident searching, the non-hot list type searches are in the more serious crimes, like the shooting, for example, those sorts of things of being able to look back and do that.
Councilwoman Overton.
Chief, I just would like to know, and what funding are we using? Is there a grant, or is this as a general?
So we've used a mixture of the existing contract. We've used a mixture of supplemental law enforcement services fund. We use some general fund money, and we use some asset forfeiture money. The expansion would be some combination thereof, as well as salary savings. So if you're aware, we have been able to fill positions is one way to force multiply. So it'd be within that. As far as future budgeting years, it'd be addressed through the budgeting process. There's currently no grants that we've been made aware of or been able to apply for to fulfill that. So we balance it out with what we have.
Okay, thank you.
If no council comments, we'll open the public hearing. Do we have anything from the public?
First of all, Honorable Mayor and council members, I've been asked by a couple of the attendees watching to please speak directly into your microphone, because it's difficult to hear council members if you don't speak closely. And we do have 2 members of the public who raised their hand within the Zoom. The first is Patty Duke.
Hi, I want to thank you, Chief White, and your department for the work that you're doing. I've never seen so many vehicles on our streets that are being stripped. I've seen them on the highway, but apparently people are coming here thinking they can just strip. So you guys are doing good. I want to know if your platform will support residential cameras, because I have cameras.
It does not support using residential cameras. The community integration is that there is an opportunity for, as I mentioned, businesses, but also too in some communities, groups of neighbors have gotten together and they sponsor a camera, and then they can be installed.
I just thought that would help. That would help. And, the little out of way areas like mine where people tend to think that they can do what they want. I mean, so residential cameras besides the business, those are on the main streets. So that's my thoughts. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And that's all.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment.
Second is Bruno Sabatier. Go ahead.
Good evening, council. I love what has been happening with the police department, and this is a huge addition. And I know that on day 1 already, you guys were seeing the results, and obviously listening in, the results have kept coming in. I wasn't able to hear everything, and so maybe this question was already answered. But my question is, will you be able to utilize this for illegal dumping? Are you able to see what's in the back of people's trucks and able to coincide with what you find in dumping grounds and being able to put the two together? Or is that a different problem that needs a different solution?
I think that it can certainly contribute to resolving illegal dumping. It's not set up as a system where, like you mentioned about seeing what's in the back of the truck, that sort of thing. Sometimes it can capture that information. I would see the usage of a case as if you're investigating a situation of illegal dumping and come across a vehicle, you could then kind of backtrack to see what area that came from. And potentially in that you could see what they had in it. An example is we had a stolen vehicle that came into town and it had like an engine presumably stripped out of some other vehicle in the back of it. So I think it's definitely a component of it. I think it would tie in with an additional type of technology, which we also have deployed, which are basically remote cameras that we can install on trees and so forth in areas where we have dumping. And we've deployed one of those and have received good information from it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add on a little bit to what Chief White said in this regard. Chief White and myself had conversations with Mr. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director from the county, and he's interested in having a conversation with the Solid Waste Task Force about whether this type of technology can be addressed to solve that very issue. So more to come on that one.
We appreciate that. Any more comments?
From the,
I'll bring it back to the councilman if there's no more public comment. All right, well, Councilman Cramer, please.
yes, just wanted to pass on to, I did a ride along with Chief White back in December. And in the course of that ride along, Chief White did a traffic stop on one vehicle towing another. And I think within moments of that stop, he determined that not one, but both of those vehicles were stolen. Subsequently arrested both people in each vehicle. And I'm not too sure what the resolution of the rest of them, but both of those cars or vehicles were recovered. And as I recall, one of them was like 2 days and that had been stolen, so almost immediately. Well, maybe you could comment on that, but it was very impressed with the way the system worked.
Yeah, I think that was another example tying to Councilmember Clapey's question about hot list versus looking back at the data. And one of those vehicles was one that hit, but they weren't able to recover it, but then we ultimately got it back. I neglected to provide one other additional piece of information I think is relevant for all of you to understand is you don't go to jail in this county for driving a stolen vehicle. So it's a felony. You used to go to jail for that. You currently don't go. We've seen cases like that one. That individual is just a habitual car thief that rampages in the community with no real accountability. At least
That was number 5 and 6, as I recall.
Yeah, it's something close to that. So, and in fact, it ties in with the issue brought up earlier by a community member about these, vehicles being dumped and that sort of thing.
Councilman Clapey.
Thank you. And Chief, I appreciate you bringing new technologies to the table. I read through the policy. I think it's on par with other municipal policies. And I think, the way you guys handle the program is very professional, and I really appreciate what you do. I think at some point the determination was made by a prior city council that the benefits to the community brought by this passive surveillance technology outweighs potential infringement on privacy and civil liberties. And I feel like that balance needs to be re-examined a little bit. I think the policy that we have right now is a little bit too broad. And to kind of touch on some examples, the state auditor report that I mentioned earlier, much larger sample size. They took the city of Los Angeles, which had collected at that time 320 million photos. Of those photos, 99.9% were of vehicles that weren't on any hot list. They were just regular citizens going about their daily activities, not doing anything wrong. And in that vein, I just feel like regulation has really lagged. And I think our policies, while they're on par with other municipalities, reflect that. Right now, there's a state law, SB 210, that's in Sacramento right now that is looking to reduce the retention window down to 24 hours if a vehicle is not on the hot list. As the chief mentioned, Our retention window is 60 days. And I think that's something that should be discussed by this council at some point. I know this is a funding request and not a policy discussion, but I think it's something that we need to look at. Another issue that came up in the city of Pasadena was that plate data was being shared with ICE against the wishes of the city council. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of sharing with them, but that's a discussion that we need to have as to what agencies have access to this type of data. So I guess from my perspective, I understand it's exciting technology. It's effective because, you know, we're just scraping a lot of data. But at the end of the day, I think we need to have an in-depth policy conversation about how our government is collecting information about our residents and how we're using it. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It sounds like a future agenda. Vice Mayor Purdue.
Just a question, Chief, on the operations. One of the things that maybe I missed it in your report is actually how does that data come in? How is it reported out to the officers? And then how do they respond?
So the data comes in from the cameras through cellular backhaul as well as fiber optic. Basically coming across the internet, across the encrypted connection. That information is then distributed to dispatch and the officers through a variety of ways. They can get notifications on the phone that they're issued. There's a monitoring system in dispatch. They then relay that information to the officers out in the field. With regards to the access of the data, so one of the points brought up by some of the advocacy groups as far as, you know, you're collecting billions of photos, et cetera, is that searches require a law enforcement purpose. So even though the data is there, if you look at the amount of data that we have versus the data that's been searched, it's a very, very small percentage of it. So in either event, if they have some law enforcement purpose, then they go in there, the system requires that they audit their reasons for accessing that. And they can go and get it and use it in their case.
Okay, I have a couple of follow-up questions or comments. Please proceed. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think this is a fantastic program. Again, Chief, thank you again for bringing it to us and for the expansion of the existing program. I see this as an officer safety tool in that they're not stopping a stolen car and approaching it maybe without that knowledge and jeopardizing their safety. And I also see it as a great tool and a savings to the city because we don't have to hire those multiple officers to do that recognition work and recover these vehicles, which oftentimes lead to other crimes, as you pointed out. So kudos to you and your department for bringing this forward.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion with council here? If not, can I have a motion?
Chair, I'd like to make the motion that we accept resolution number 2021-05 and read it by title only. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Clearlake authorizing the city manager to add additional automated license plate recognition cameras to the sole source contract with Fox Safety for the police department.
Mr. Mayor, will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Overton and a second by Vice Mayor Purdue.
Yep.
Yes. City Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cramer,
Aye.
Councilmember Clocky,
Okay.
Councilmember Overton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Purdue,
Aye.
Mayor Sluten.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to item number 12. City Manager Flora, please proceed with the staff report.
Yeah, Chief White will present the staff report.
Yes, good evening again. This item was requested by the council to be brought before you. And the item is regarding concealed weapons permits. So by way of background, the California Penal Code authorizes the chief of police to issue concealed weapons permits, commonly referred to as CCWs. The statute requires the applicant to be a good moral character. They must find that good cause exists for the issuance of the license, and the applicant must be a resident of the city, and the applicant must have completed a course of training as described in the Penal Code. The Clearlake Police Department currently does not issue CCW permits. We have an agreement with Lake County Sheriff's Office to process all CCW applications on our behalf. The process for obtaining a CCW consists of 4 parts. The first part is completing an application and submitting that application. That can be done in person or via mail to LCSO. LCSO reviews the application and then conducts the local and county background checks. After that's complete, the applicant is mailed instructions for securing a live scan check. They provide a fee to LCSO that's passed on to DOJ, and the live scan process is completed. Once those results are received, LCSO schedules an interview with the applicant. During that interview, they'll review all the information submitted in the original application, as well as their good cause and any information discovered during the background process, and the decision will be made whether to move the application forward. The application is decided to move forward. They move on to the training step. State law has changed a lot in this area. It now requires that there's a course of at least 8 hours, but not to exceed 16 hours required. That course covers basic firearm handling, shooting skills, and laws regarding permissible use of a firearm. It also includes a qualification type course in demonstrating good handling of the firearm. The LCSO currently offers a basic firearms course that meets all those requirements. They offer that for a fee of $100. If there are some exceptions that they're allowed to have that alleviate having to go through that course, but they still qualify with the sheriff's office. Once that's complete, they will pay a $6 permit fee. And for those that are renewing, they have a 1-day renewal course. Upon completion of all the training requirements and the other steps, a permit is issued and is generally valid for a period of 2 years. As of a recent check, there are approximately 85 permits issued to residents in the city of Clearlake by LCSO. LCSO has a fairly extensive cadre of staff that are involved in the CCW process, including 8 staff and volunteers that offer the required training course. You're probably aware that the county doesn't have many opportunities for shooting ranges. The city currently uses the Highland Springs facility under a contract with the sheriff's office to do qualifications for our police officers. In reviewing this item, we looked at basically how that training opportunity could be met in other ways. One of the challenges in the county is because the way that facility is structured, you can't offer for-profit classes there. So it essentially precludes a private vendor from offering the CCW classes there and relieving that burden on the permitting agency. So to my knowledge, the closest avenues would be to go up towards Mendocino County to receive the instruction if you wanted to go to a private approved class, or down into Napa County or another surrounding county. As I mentioned, we currently have LCSO handle the permitting process. The primary reason is due to our limited staffing. As I mentioned in the last item, we have a very thin staff that's deployed in a city that has a very challenging crime problem. And so our focus is on preventing, detecting, and investigating the crime, doing patrols, community engagement, and responding to calls for service. I feel that we lack the adequate staffing and resources to offer the same level of service that's currently being offered by LCSO at no cost to our residents, without incurring additional significant costs. As far as those, what those costs would be, we'd anticipate that we need at least another detective who would take on part of this role. We would also need additional staffing in the range side of things. Currently, 2 of our sergeants are range masters. They do that on an adjunct basis to their primary duties. Just given the numbers, looking at the renewal classes and so forth, it'd be a pretty extensive involvement. That said, I've had several very positive conversations with Sheriff Martin regarding making the CCW process more accessible in the city without us taking on the entire process. These steps can include offering periodic presentations regarding the process. Obviously, it's somewhat limited right now because of COVID, but we had talked pre-COVID about, potentially offering in the city hall, and folks could come down, learn about the process, and then proceed forward. We've also discussed about us handling the live scan portion. As you'll recall, we made an investment in a live scan machine, which is really the only one on this side of the lake. And that's something that we could offer to alleviate taking a trip over to the other side to fill that, or to take care of that process. We've also talked too about potentially accepting the application packets and then submitting them to LCSO. I think that the benefit there probably isn't that great because you can just mail them into the sheriff's office. And we've also talked about, potentially exploring other ways that maybe haven't been identified within here. So at this time, that's the information on kind of where we're at with things, why we do what we do with it, what would be involved in changing it. I will say that I think that the sheriff and I both have the same feelings in terms of issuance, which is to say that we're not anti-CCW or anything like that. You demonstrate good cause. This is a county with limited law enforcement resources. We mentioned before challenging crime problems. It is something that's provided for in state law, and so we support that if you want to go through the process, meet all the requirements, and you can get yourself a permit. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and take any direction from the council.
Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor, could I just add one thing before you, so there was also a letter attached to the staff report that we requested kind of preliminary review from our insurance provider. So hopefully you had a chance to look at that, but that our insurance provider does not support us taking on either the role of issuing the permits or being involved in the activities at the firing range. So.
Great.
Yeah, just to clarify, and that was part of my question, was that the PARSAC letter is limited to if we are the issuing agency as opposed to the sheriff office, and also we're running the range to do the qualifying part of it. Is that's where the liability would come to the city, not just accepting the application or starting the process and doing the live scan.
Well, yes, I mean, I don't think what Chief White was proposing does not include the police department accepting applications, but providing opportunities perhaps at some point when COVID is behind us for some forum to ask questions and learn about the program and do your live scan. But that would be the extent of.
Well, I guess my question is, by accepting the form, the application form to pass on to Sheriff Martin is.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. No, I don't think they have a problem with that. I think we'd be like a delivery person. We just turn it over to them. I didn't get the impression that they had any issue with that. Their impression is we actually take on issuing it or tied into delivering the training, that sort of thing. That's where they have significant.
That was my question there. So you don't have, you're okay with them taking the application, just to give people, instead of having to drive to Lakeport, they can come in here and get it and complete it, and then you'll forward it on. And then the live scan, you can do that. And I believe that there was a cost in there for the live scan, which I assume that could pay for any of our time, your time.
So we already have an established fee for doing live scan rolling.
Right.
So it would be just like we do live scans for any other public member. We would just tie it into our process. So again, it would save going over there to complete that stage of the process.
And I get that we don't have a range, and I don't think the one at Highland Springs is a really great range. Now, somewhere down the road, I think that we need to be looking at a county-wide, both cities, any law enforcement agencies, and perhaps some sort of an agreement with a private operator in some form. I think we need to explore that for the going forward for both for your training and the other law enforcement agencies' training. It seems to me that might make it something that's feasible and is beneficial to law enforcement, number one, and then also to private citizens that want to get their CCW or just want to do recreational shooting. That's the next step. But what I wanted, my question to you is whether this last paragraph, basically in your presentation, is doable.
Yes, I think it is doable.
Okay, and not gonna stress you too much.
No, not at all. And I think that that's what, we took kind of what we were hearing and then also to looking at the processes and everything else to try to figure out what's the best way to accomplish this, keeping in mind fiscal impacts, quality of service, filling our primary mission. And I think that's where it starts to strike that balance. And you know, I worked with other agents and stuff, and I was, you know, very appreciative of the willingness of the sheriff, not only to make sure that our city gets a very high level of service within this area, but also too, to be open to other ideas. So I think that even things that aren't identified here, if we find some way to streamline something or whatever else, my impression from him is that, you know, he's on board with working with us and fulfilling this service.
Councilwoman Overton.
I'm curious, how many people come in here and ask you for information about getting a permit?
Every once in a while, somebody might ask about the process or inquire.
This is not something that's been huge in our area in the first place. I'm going to assume it's a very minimal time that you have to spend on any of this anyway.
Under the current arrangement, yes. Yeah, because essentially we refer them to the sheriff's office if they have any interest.
But I'm saying we don't get that many people that come in here asking for this permit process and the permit
No.
stuff. So I mean, I'm all in favor of whatever we can do to help the process with the sheriff's department. Definitely don't feel that we want to any of the training or anything. That would be something I would even have thought of in the first place. So I mean, I really feel like this might just be something that's more handled at your end of what you feel is something that you can assist the sheriff's department with, instead of I don't want to do the whole thing. That's for sure. That would never work for us. But I don't see the need, a drastic need for it in our community right now. Maybe in the future, so it's probably good to work on it. But I don't think this is something that we have to like jump on board and go to. But if you can work with the sheriff on anything, we do that anyway. So I would say that would be under your management skills, and I'm fine with that. Whatever you want to work with him on.
All right, we'll open a public hearing. Do we have any, sorry.
Sure.
Councilman Clappy, I didn't see you.
Just one question. So what was the genesis of this? Have we been getting a lot of complaints due to lack of access?
We had, it was a future agenda item request of a couple of the council members is the way we put this together.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing. City Clerk, do we have any people from the public that want to comment or have questions on this item?
So I've not received any emails on this item nor town hall requests. However, we do have a member on the Zoom. We have several members on the Zoom who wish to speak on this item. The first is Patty Duke. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Patty.
Hi, have you contacted Calusa? It's really not that far of a drive. There was a retired sheriff that was doing training and certification for handguns. So if you haven't contacted Calusa Sheriff Department, might be helpful. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Fawn Williams. Go ahead, Fawn. Are you there, Fawn?
See, there, am I there now?
Yes,
we can.
Okay, sorry. From what I'm reading here and hearing is that really the only thing that CPD would be helping with is the live scan that would assist the sheriff's department and also provide a service to the citizens of Clearlake. And I think that any services that we can offer to our citizens of Clearlake that doesn't make them drive to the other side of the lake is beneficial. My other question was, would the live scan only be available to citizens of Clearlake to come into CPD, or would residents from South County also be able to come to CPD to use that instead of them having to drive to Lakeport? So that was all I wanted to say.
We offer live scan to anybody from the public.
Did that answer your question, Fawn? If so, let's move on to the next. There's one additional public comment.
Okay, next is Mark Burkeville. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Mark.
Hi, so I guess the goal of this program was to be to make the CCW program more accessible to the citizens of Clearlake instead of having to go to Lakeport. Is that my understanding?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. Because I was just thinking about all the other ancillary costs that are associated with having your CCW permit that I would hope that they'd also be prepared for. Getting a proper holster and gun belt and a gun safe, because there are many places where the CCW permit is not allowed. So it's a commitment by the individual when they start the process.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Next is Bruno Sabatier.
Please proceed, Bruno.
Good evening again, council. Listening to this item, I've never heard of anyone complaining not having access to the sheriff's office in order to obtain a license. I understand that there is some potential benefits of having the license available in a more proximity, in closer proximity to the people of Clearlake. But at the same time, it's an added duty that would be placed onto your police department. And seeing the wonderful item that we just had about the camera systems, while that's great, we know that there's still a lot more to be done in the city of Clearlake that we would love to see our police department do, but still don't have the capacity to get done. They're doing a great job. They're doing better than I think I've ever seen them do. But it would just be an added duty. So on one end, we're doing better and able to keep our city safer, but on the other end, we're adding ancillary duties, which are already taken care of by someone else at no cost to the city of Clearlake. So I'm not sure that I agree that this is a true benefit when, unless there's been some actual complaints of the inaccessibility due to it being in Lakeport. And maybe there can be a conversation with Lakeport, seeing especially right now, everything is being done remotely. Is it possible to try to limit what is needed in person and try to maybe submit stuff online via Zoom? I'm sure that it can't all be done virtually, obviously, the fingerprints and whatnot, but maybe some of those things can be helped out in different ways. I don't know, just never heard of a complaint coming from our constituents in this area. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Sabatier. Any additional comments from the public?
Looks like there are no further hands raised in this Zoom.
Okay, and we'll bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor Furlow.
So first, Chief, thank you for your work, and I appreciate your report. One of the things that, the only thing we really can offer our citizens is service. And though I wouldn't classify it as complaints, since we began having this conversation, is actually former council member Carl Harris had approached me to see if I would be interested in siding with him or supporting not just this, but also a Second Amendment issue for our city council to take action on. And it started the conversation, and I've been contacted by several members of the public who were grateful at the opportunity not to have to drive to Lakeport multiple times to proceed in the process of getting their CCW. And also in Lake County, as the chief pointed out, truly the only range that we really have access to is the Highland Springs range. And I think there's a need there. Extrapolate that to our current situation. Gun sales are up currently right now. Talked to many of the gun dealers, firearms dealers here in our county and throughout Northern California. They can't find firearms to meet the demand of the people that they're wanting to buy them. Talking with one former retired CHP officer who owns a gun shop in Arcata, he says that most of the people purchasing, and I also spoke with the gun dealer here in this area, are first-time gun buyers. And one of the other things that I can appreciate is through the CCW process, they're getting trained. And that to me is very important because people who don't know how to work firearms or use firearms properly is not a benefit, but actually liability. So that is another issue that I wanted to address here, and I think a benefit for this program, whether it's held here at Clearlake PD or it's run through the sheriff's office. And my last point is statistically, our mission for the city of Clearlake is to have a safer city. And throughout the country, places that offer CCW or states that have open carry are significantly safer than those who do not. Those with the strictest gun laws seem to be the most dangerous. So those are all reasons why I felt it was important to ask the chief to consider this. And then last, I'll say, I truly respect Sheriff Martin and the job that he's doing. I hope that he can get to staffing as soon as possible. But per capita, I think we're doing better than the sheriff's office is, and response times are far superior here in Clearlake, as even the sheriff's pointed out, I believe, in previous press releases or comments that he's made. So I just like to support that. And if we can work better with them, that's all we should be trying to do anyway. So thank you, Chief. If we can save 1 or 2 trips to Lakeport for our citizens to get access to a CCW where they feel comfortable in their homes, which they have protections within the Constitution anyway. But it's when they leave their homes that we can have people that are trained, well trained, and able to protect themselves and their families. So thank you.
Councilwoman Overton.
So you would do the life scans anyway if somebody came in, correct? Okay, so that's not even an issue. Paperwork dropping off, they would drop it off if they went to the jail or something on their way back, they would just drop the paperwork off, correct? They're not gonna make a special trip to drop it off.
No, we'd probably handle it with our visits.
Something like that, yeah. Okay, so neither one of those are something that you wouldn't do just because he's asking you to do, right? Okay. So I think one of my things is I like the idea if we're gonna do maybe a training, like you said, give the people the information. And so maybe that would be something that I think would be nice to have and see what the response is to that. That would also tell us, is this an issue that we need to even look for anything else? But it seems to me like you're able to handle the couple of things there. That's not a big deal. Make it where our citizens have pretty good access and maybe some information on, and then maybe even could be a video or something on our website or something. It may not even have to be in, here. It could just be a video like, here's the things you need to know about getting a license. Maybe there's a video out there we can get just post. So that's my suggestion.
Councilman Cramer.
Yes, I think, again, you've made it pretty clear that what you could do is limited to having the forms here and maybe accepting them after they're completed. I don't see that as and you don't seem to think that that's something that's going to tax your people. And then do the live scan, which again, you get a fee for. So that's not something that should be a problem. Contrary to what Councilwoman Overton and I think Councilmember Classy said, that they and Supervisor Sabache, well, I've never heard that anybody's interested. I have. I've talked to a lot of people in Clearlake that are interested in getting their CTW. This is a more dangerous world, and there's times when that's something that you really need to have. As far as CCW holders, as Vice Mayor Hurdock pointed out, they're generally well trained, and they can be a force multiplier as well in certain circumstances. Mr. Berkdahl's letter came in, and which I got a copy of, and noticeable at the bottom of it is something that he's highlighted: the crime rate for legal CCW holders, 18 per 100,000. Well, it's 3,817 per 100,000 for the general population and 108 per 100,000 for police officers. That study was conducted by Wharton and University of Chicago professor. And he's given a website address, which I would be happy to pass on to anybody that wanted it. So I would love to see, I think Highland Springs is a limited facility too. I honestly do think down the road, we need to be, either all of the law enforcement agencies in the county need to be working together to perhaps build one. I understand it's a really costly item. You've mentioned Chief, anywhere from 200,000 to 400,000. I've heard up to $1 million. I think it's probably something that would be better off handled by a private company that could build it and do it for profit and contract with the law enforcement agencies in the county to give them a better service than what they have now. That's down the road. But tonight, I fully support basically your last paragraph with regard to taking applications. Love the idea of having a public meeting, maybe giving possible CC or people interested in a CCW what they need to do, and then the live scans. And I'm fully in support of doing that right now.
Councilman Clark.
I just want to agree with the rest of the council. I think this is a great step forward. I think the more we can offer better access to our residents, the better. And I just encourage you to keep working with the sheriff's department to try to expand training out here if possible. But I understand the facilities are somewhat limited. But I think Councilmember Cramer and Councilmember Murdoch really expressed it the best.
And I guess it's my time to comment on this item. It's obvious that our insurance carrier doesn't want us to do that. And secondly, I don't know if we could lose our insurance if we do. That would be horrible. Secondly, I'm not in favor of adding additional duties to our police department that's already understaffed. And if we have to do this, the amount of people, if there are 85 people in the city that have a concealed weapon permit, cost of adding another 100,000 detective salaries to this is I think, prohibitive. So I am not in favor of getting a program like that established here, but if there is a way to, we can accommodate the citizens of the city having certain parts here, like the lab scan and the application. I'm in favor of that.
If I could just point out one thing, we talked a lot about being able to pick up the application and have email it to the sheriff's office and stuff. And, I'm sure if we need to, we can do that type of thing. But just wanted to let everyone know that the sheriff's office has a specific page on his webpage related to CCW applications, very detailed on the process. You can download all of the application forms and qualification forms required. It has the address to send them to Lakeport. So I'm sure we can help in that regard if necessary, but it's very easy already to get the forms online. And, it would probably be better to the extent possible, have folks return them directly to the sheriff's office.
Councilman Overton has an additional question.
We just put a link on our website for that, and then, that solves everything, I think. That's it.
But
Okay, it seems like we get into a consensus here. Direction to the staff is that we're not in favor of getting the whole process done by the Clearlake PD, but we are in favor of having live scans and having the application process make easier and accessible to the Clearlake. Am I correct with that?
Also necessary.
Okay.
yeah, that's better.
Does that give you enough direction to staff?
I believe so, yes.
Good, thank you. All right. There's no formal action on this item, so we have given you consensus. City manager report.
Yes, I don't have much to offer this time. I did want to make sure and share that the senior center starting tomorrow will be used as a vaccination site from 12 to 4 p.m. You cannot show up at the senior center and expect to get a vaccination. They're focusing on seniors. You need to contact your local senior center to be able to access that and make an appointment. They do have some limited supplies of vaccine. This is from Dr. Pace this morning. I did want to point out one thing because it's been in the news in a number of areas across the country about one particular lot of the Moderna vaccine, which had been recalled and was not recommended for use. I believe there was 100 or so of those that were here in Lake County. They were told to be withheld for a while, but now they've been released. Yes, they've done a lot of analysis on those across the state and the country and determined that not to be any danger to folks. They are expecting a larger shipment of about 800 shots next week. So hopefully that continues to increase. So again, for the public, the vaccination site will be available in Clearlake Monday, Friday, and Saturday, 12 to 4, and at the Lake County Fairgrounds Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the same times. We have had some questions about this from the public. I've mentioned this a couple times, but the housing development project on 36th Avenue, as you know, is kind of screeched to a halt. Looks pretty bad now. The road's closed. The houses are half finished. The owner had some medical issues that the family's been working through. So I just wanted you to know if you get questions about that. Myself and some of the other staff have been in extremely regular contact with the family and are working through options to get that project back on track and the road open there as soon as possible. I'm not sure what the timeline is going to be, but we're making a little bit of progress. So all of you should have seen the letter that was due today based on the direction of the last council meeting regarding Golden State's rate increase to the California Public Utilities Commission. That letter was sent this morning with the assistance of the mayor and Councilmember Claffey. So appreciate their input and also the information and support from Supervisor Sabatier on that. Let me know if you have any questions about what happens next. And then the final thing, continuing to work on the Highlands Park application and sort of revising that project in a way that is consistent with the grant requirements and the budget, but excited about getting that application submitted soon and appreciate all of the community input on that. So with that, that's my report.
Councilman Overton, to report on?
I could just kind of add a little bit to basically what I've been doing for the last week is setting up appointments. So just to let the community know, we are full and have a very long waiting list, for this weekend. So it is not, you cannot show up. You must have an appointment. So if you don't have one, there are no more available. We're just waiting for the county to open up for us to start taking appointments for next week because we're doing it week by week. Hopefully they do get the bigger batches in. If they got enough, they were planning on maybe doing some things differently. But so just so people know that we have a very high rate of seniors in our community. Just the ones that we have registered at our senior center is 300 over the age of 70. And I haven't even gotten them people yet. So a few of them have called in, but mostly we're getting calls just from around the lake. So but are really stressed to not show up because, there are some in different counties that have to drive through, drive up, but I'm stressing this is by appointment only. So, if you want to get on the list, it's a very long one, but we can put you on, you can call and we'll put you on the list.
But just a question, if I may.
Yeah, please.
The 300 that you have registered, are those folks that are seniors that have signed up at the senior center in the past?
So the 300 of our senior center, we have over 300 that we have serviced this last year only, this global last year. 300, it was actually 299 seniors over the age of 70.
Well, I might add. two
Yeah,
more.
I wouldn't want to go any further down to 65 or 60 because the list would just be too long for me to handle. So we couldn't even handle this one with all the calls that we've gotten. We've just been swamped with calls. So we have 4 lines. They've all been going all the time for the past week. So just can't keep up with it. And there's just the waiting list is so long that I would not, I really encourage people to contact their doctors because some doctors are giving the vaccine. So I say contact your doctor first. And if they're not doing it, then contact either your senior centers or the health department. You can do it online also.
So it seems like, which criteria are you going by? The county criteria of 75 or the state criteria of 65?
To clarify, I mean, the senior center isn't making that determination. It's just, I mean, it's all based on public health. It's for this section of appointments, they've basically delegated setting the appointments for the seniors to the senior centers. And you aren't making the appointments through public health at this time. They've asked the senior centers to take that on. But you know, that model isn't going to last very long, especially when you move into other tiers. It shouldn't be the responsibility of the senior centers to administer a public health program.
So for us, I'm looking at that, you know, this first week we were looking at, I think we all were looking at the most vulnerable. So we went, I concentrated more on the 70 and up. Because, I mean, I have over 100. I mean, we have, you know, people that are over 100 that live in our area, 90 and 100, very, you know, very, we have a very healthy older group here. So, you know, that's what I've been concentrating on because they're the most vulnerable. They really kind of want to start getting out and getting up. And then people, of course, that have medical conditions that I go are things, but we really, the centers, I think, all will be concentrating on the older for this week. And then after this, I guess it'll be whoever's on the list.
Councilman Clappy.
I just want to say thank you, Councilmember Overton, because this is very important. And everyone in the city that's involved with this, it's just, it's something that is vital. And I appreciate all the effort you're putting in. I also want to say the city manager, the letter to Golden State, I think really captured a lot of the sentiment that was expressed last meeting. I think it's an exceptional letter and it moved me. Hopefully it will move the commission as well. In terms of committees, so yesterday we had our marketing committee where we set goals for 2021. One piece of that is to hopefully improve our project management framework and start focusing on really key priority areas. We do still have an opening on that board. We've opened up applications for it. And there is opportunity. We have one seat to fill, but there's opportunity to do more. So if you know anyone who might be interested, please go through the city website or contact our city clerk. And then PEG TV, I doing my first meeting with them, really right now focusing on finalizing our budget. The plan is to start really focusing on having conversations with other organizations so that we can be partners in creating new content for the channel. But I think there's some really exciting opportunities there. So that should be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cramer.
Yes, I don't have very much either. Most of my meetings this month have been canceled until February. Do have one thing, and just an added note to Councilman Overton's comments on the vaccine. Adventist Health, and perhaps Vice Mayor Purdock can comment further, but they have, as I understand it, a call-in number for their 800 clients that are within the Adventist Health Clearlake system that you can call and get on a list as well.
That's correct.
That's all I have.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Well, everyone covered everything I can, so in the interest of brevity, I will pass.
The only committee I attended meeting was LAFCO. They rescinded the sphere of influence of Contact Water District, but approved a MSR of all the water districts in the city of Clearlake. So that will include Conocta, Highlands, and Golden State. LAFCO will be looking over their shoulders and see if how they're doing their business. Kind of an interesting concept. All right, that's really all I have. Any future agenda items? Vice Mayor Furlong.
We'll also have a housekeeping, and I suppose maybe, Mr. Fuller, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd like to ask the clerk, I didn't receive my packet for Ava, I had to chase around. So if I could just get connected with the county to get on their mailing list, to get an appointee and vice chair for that committee, so they can, properly share that data with me. And the same for LAFCO, I didn't receive the meeting invite, and I wanted to attend that.
I have a call into the county to get you on.
I don't want to miss any meetings. Thank you, Councilman Clappy, for sitting in for me in the pay meeting. I appreciate that. And then for future agenda items, I thought the Measure B committee appointments were going to be on tonight's agenda. Is that coming up soon?
And no, what we had shared when we discussed that was that we had selected a meeting in March to do that. And so I think Mr. Goodman has been working on that project, and we're shooting for one of the meetings in March. I don't recall off the top of my head which one it was.
Thank you.
Do you have anybody submit any applications?
I don't-
Fill that out?
It looks like no.
But I have an appointee, and I'm happy to share that with you later.
I have one quick question on Highlands Park. Did we get enough comments? Was the rate of people responding and giving comments?
Yeah, it was very low. All of you who jumped in at the last minute and helped. I don't know the final count, but when I started pushing that, I think we had 7 survey responses. We ended up somewhere over 100. I'm not exactly sure the total, but we're pleased with the final response that we ended up getting.
All right, anybody have any other additional agenda items? If not,
Yeah.